Hey guys, and welcome to an old school grudge match as the forces of the High Elves, led by Golden Goose, take on Croissant Talbert of ODM and his Dark Elf legions. Should be a really fun game. Let's pop into slow-mo here and have a little look at the build. So very thematic here, going up against each other in one of the oldest rivalries in the Warhammer world. Not the oldest, of course, but still it is up there as one of the most epic. And in the front lines are troops who know the heartache of the Dark Elf Sundrin more than most. And that is Triple Shadow Warriors. These guys hail from the realm of Nagarife, deep within Dark Elf territory nowadays, and they're pretty good in this matchup. Overall, decent combat stats in case they do get caught, and do some pretty decent long-range damage. They can counter-fire against enemy artillery if they get close enough, and deal pretty good with the Dark Elf skirmish corps itself. Now for the main battle line, we do have a mixture of spearmen and rangers in a rather thin formation and a thin kind of line all round. That's because there's money invested in other elements of this build. As for those other elements, we do have a decent mobile core. We have Illyrian Reavers up in the centre, and there's going to be 2 units of Silver Helms who are shielded as well. Good counter to Dark Riders coming in with that bronze shield to help dissipate some of the damage that is going to come into them and to not take too much. We do have Rahagra's Pride here, the War Lions of Therese Regiment of Renown, one of the coolest looking models in the entire game. Look how badass these lions are. They also come with a very useful ability, the Mighty Roar, lowers leadership and speed of the opponents in a nearby area. Rounding out the build, we do have the mighty and legendary Phoenix Guard. A unit I don't myself bring too often. They can certainly do absolutely huge carnage and damage across the battlefield, but relatively expensive and still foot troops. So even despite the fact they have, that anti-large and fantastic stats with their halberds, often they can get pushed over by large entities, and you need something to help pin them in to allow the Phoenix Guard to really do the work. We have a noble on the chariot, of course, one of the most well-known High Elf picks, very powerful anti-infantry combatant, and we have Teclis, of course, coming with net regrowth, as well as all his items and lucky charms. So pretty damn awesome stuff. Now for the forces of the Dark Elves, in the front line we have a mixture of Dread Spears, Black Arc Corsairs and Bleak Swords dotted all the way along. Again, not going incredibly wide, much like the High Elves, they're relying on a mobile core of their build to do decent damage. On this left-hand flank we have double Dark Riders with shields as well. On the right-hand flank we have a lovely flank overload, and that is coming in with 1, 2, 3, 4 units. 3 of which are Cold One Knights. We also have the Salacious Harvesters, Regiment of Renowned Doomfire Warlocks on this right-hand side, who come with the bound spells Word of Pain and Soul Stealer. Apart from that, it looks like we do have a Blood Rack Medusa, who's currently getting absolutely pounded to death by those Shadow Warriors. Decent kind of mobile, almost artillery piece, I suppose. With some Squadron of Chariots, and for the Lordship, we do have Malekith on his Cold One here. Looking pretty ferocious. I don't think his Cold One has a name. I think the only one who has a name is Malice Darkblades, which is Sprite. We have Gaze of Malice, Stand Your Ground, and Soul Stealer coming in, so pretty competitive stuff. And a Reaper Bolt Thrower in the background here, but it's going to be left behind as the Dark Elves do start to advance, which isn't the worst idea, honestly. If you can kind of pin in the High Elves with this amount of mobility, you don't really need to protect it in the back line. Looks like it's doing some pretty decent damage to that Noble, but of course we know Teclis has the regrowth, and that's what makes these Nobles so potent and deadly. A big old death screen coming in from the Blood Rack Medusa. Does some okay damage to the Rangers, and it looks like that Noble is absolutely bombing it away, running behind the spear wall of the Spearmen, who do try to intercept these Cold One Knights. And it looks like we are going to get a Gnat of Amantok come down on them. And in come the Illyrian Reavers, supported by the Rahagra's Pride. And that is a really good catch early on, pinning in that unit and assassinating it. Even the Noble is getting back in here for a little bit of action. The High Elf front line should hold relatively well, or at least for a decent amount of time, but will eventually be overrun here. See Cold One Knights darting around the battlefield. Word of Pain was popped on the Silver Helms, but they did some decent damage before retreating and forcing the Dark Elves off as well with the Phoenix Guard. The mere presence of them pinning terror into the hearts of this Dark Elf force and driving them back. Looks like we did have one of the bound fiery convocations come down. Looks like it didn't do too crazy a work, but it looks like some Cold One Knights did indeed break, so maybe it managed to catch them a little bit. Illyrian Reavers are now retreating back. And this is pretty bad. Dark Riders have found home in the back lines, trying to chase down Shadow Warriors, but Silverhelms come lancing in, crashing into these Dark Riders as the ferocious hand-to-hand combat does get underway. And yeah, these Dark Riders, they're a unit that wants to stay moving. They never really want to sit still for too long, and they are getting destroyed, although they are pinning in the Silverhelms, allowing the Scourge Runner chariots to do some decent work. With a mighty roar popped in, Cold War Knights are struggling up against Rahaga's Pride, who do currently have a regrowth on them. If their leadership breaks here, they could be chased off the field, but they're just about holding, dragging down these Cold War Knights in ferocious combat. Malekith trying his best to support, dropping a Soul Stealer down on the Shadow Warriors, and in drive the Illyrian Reavers to help finish off the Cold War Knights just as the Rahaga's Pride do break. But they're getting held up by that regrowth, should be able to return to the battlefield. There's nothing over here that can indeed finish them off. The Dark Elves are gaining ground as well. They've lost a lot of troops, so they have forced off one unit of Silverhelms, who shall be escorted away by Dark Riders, and Spearmen can now push into the back lines and put pressure on the Shadow Warriors. Over here, looks like Scourge Runner chariots are nearly caught by a mixture of Silverhelms and Techless, although they're taking quite a lot of damage as another Soul Stealer does come in. Of course, those Doomfire Warlocks can drop their own as well, hence the sheer amount of them we are seeing. Bloodrack Medusa up to 25 kills, not doing it too terrible, as the Shadow Warriors are currently taking a little bit of a pounding from the Scourge Runner chariots. In the distance, it looks like the Reaper Boltthrower has been allowed to fire all games. That's certainly getting some good value, as the Phoenix Guard come into this lovely blob fight, destroying Cold War Knights who are desperately trying to wiggle free. Snatcher's Harvesters do manage to escape, and Phoenix Guard are in hot pursuit, but they certainly want to change their targets onto these Velociraptor riding Dark Elves, and it looks like that's just what they do. They'll be able to finish them off rather quickly. So the force of the High Elves are looking a little bit low here, as Shadow Warriors are now pushed into this corner, which is certainly not what I want to do, and this is a problem that ends up kind of happening with Skirmish in the late game a lot of the time. Units like Dread Spears who are shielded, they've pushed through the front line, and now you have to deal with them, and all you have is your little Shadow Warriors back here, and they're simply going to be wasting ammunition into the Dread Spears. Dark Riders do catch up, but not before the Illyrian Reavers do pound as well, and kind of pounce in, whatever you want to say. Doing some decent work regardless to those Dark Riders, though it is freeing up the Shadow Warriors for a little while to rain fire in once more. Malekith as well is destroying some Shadow Warriors, I'm sure to his glee and enjoyment. However, Phoenix Guard doing a pretty decent job, getting a regrowth on them as well. Still 68 models, so plenty of room for them to heal up. Are now coming crashing in to support Techless, who's drived into the heart of Dark Elf lands here, and driven off the Cold Ones, driven off the Bleak Swords, driven off the Bloodrat Medusa. Techless probably wants to chase one of these units off and ensure that they actually get forced off the field. The Phoenix Guard are going to be a real tough nut to crack. Looks like the Reaper Boltthrower is starting to target in Techless, although I think they need to get to work on the Phoenix Guard, but I suppose they are a little bit spread out at the moment. In the distance, Scourge Runner Chariot has finished off Silverhelms, and more Dark Riders do come in to the screen here, as Shadow Warriors start to run out of ammunition, trying to help finish off these units on the periphery. Looks like Shadow Warriors have decided to run back through Malekith here to get to safer ground. It's a very pitched battle here, coming into the late stages, and lovely switch here, lovely micro here by Croissant Talbot, switching his bolt throwers into that burst formation and trying to pin down the Phoenix Guard, realising they are the main threat. Cold War Knights, of course, can rampage, which is one of their weaknesses, and they're rampaging directly into Phoenix Guard, territory they do not want to roam into, and the Phoenix Guard up to 64 kills here and incredibly healthy. They're going to be a massive pain. I think they do need to try and do the slow slog, though, over to shut down the bolt thrower. Actually, it looks like it only has 2 ammunition left, so perhaps it is not needed. Cold Ones have been dealt with here as Techless rides forth, trying to pin in the Blooddrack Medusa perhaps. And in the distance, Shadow Warriors have now all been cleared up. Malekith will be able to bounce over and finish off this last unit, which is doing decent work and looks like it should win its respective battle up against the Dread Spears. Scourge Runner Chariots are returning to the fray as well, but once again, very low on ammunition, and this could be becoming a big problem for the Dark Elves. They do manage to pin in Techless here, however, and he's surrounded by Black Arc Corsairs and Dark Riders, but he's still a character. Yes, he's a pretty squishy high elf, but all wizards, characters and stuff can still fight okay, especially against such tattered foes. And the Phoenix Guard now arriving as well, coming in with their halberds and getting another regrowth popped on them. Going to pop up and keep their health relatively in the higher echelons of the health bar. Blood Rat Medusa did get netted there, but only briefly. It looks like it has managed to escape as Teclis does dive in, trying its best to kind of stample over that long tail of it, and does manage to force it back. It looks like it is indeed running for the hills, at least for now. It is terrified away. The Phoenix God cause terror, then they cause fear, which may have helped drive it off. Squadron Runner Chariots do now have a Teclis in their grasp, although they've run out of their ammunition, so they may struggle to bring him down, especially if the Spearman nearby. Potion of Troy has been popped, which is going to increase his damage resistance and heal him up. So Teclis is quite happy to take this fight, especially with the Spearman nearby. Dark Riders are coming slamming in as well, realising that Teclis is alone and away from his Phoenix Guard buddies. But the Squadron Chariots are going to flee once they do arrive. So if we take stock of the battlefield here, Phoenix Guard again blasted there by the Blood Rat Medusa, which is certainly going to be its main target from now on. The Dark Elves are pretty tattered. I think the Phoenix Guard are going to be very hard to deal with. We still do have Malekith, never count him out for certain. Snatchers, Harvesters, Doom Fireworks as well maybe have some of their bound abilities. A couple of Soul Sealers dropping down could really make the difference, as well as some effective cycle charging as well from the Scourge Runner Chariot. So it looks like they're going to be netted here. Brilliant play by the High Elves once more, as the Phoenix Guard can now simply dart in, and they will destroy Scourge Runner Chariots in a matter of seconds, especially when they're being forced to be stationary like they are. They managed to wheel around to engage, but you can see their health is dropping relatively quickly, as those halberds do whirl and twirl. Yeah, down to 800 health here. That Scourge Runner Chariot is running for the hills. We do have one last fiery convocation, but it looks like the force of the Dark Elves have already shattered, so Teclis just stunned him there and sending a message to Malekith that he shall not be threatened. Although we are going to see a Soul Sealer come down on the Phoenix Guard, and this could turn the battle around. Balance power is still slightly Dark Elf favoured. With a Soul Sealer coming in, perhaps they can force army losses if they can assassinate Teclis, and they won't have to deal with the mighty Guard themselves. Although it looks like we are going to see a regrowth to counteract some of the damage of the Soul Sealer, but of course it won't bring back these dead models, which is a little unfortunate for them. Teclis once again charges into the Dread Spears. Wonder if he has one of his potions left available, trying to allow the Phoenix Guard to come over and help out this situation. Malekith is lurking, and he is certainly more than a match for Teclis. Lovely Gaze of Malice coming in. You can see the Phoenix Guard try to dodge, but they actually end up just showing their backs and kind of getting pushed and flattened onto their face, as Teclis has managed to shatter the Dread Spears here and fallen back at the same time. Sorry for any creakings, by the way, you can hear in this and the previous video. My chair has decided to start creaking, unfortunately. Phoenix Guard have darted in onto Snatchers Harvesters and dragging them down relatively well. These guys must be pretty close to breaking and shattering, although the balance power is still in the favour of the Dark Elves due to how healthy Malekith is. We may have a bit of a wizard duel off in the end. Phoenix Guard do just about brace, I think. It looks like a few of them were still moving, but Teclis comes crashing in as well. Scourge Runner Chariots taking a little bit of damage. Malekith does pop in and places a Word of Pain down on top of the Phoenix Guard. Minus 40 melee attack is really going to help out here and allow his other units to maybe get the opportunity to finally assassinate Teclis, which is some really good stuff. Standing ground has been popped as well, so the Phoenix Guard not doing much damage here at all. And Teclis desperately trying to escape, down to pretty low health here. Let's have a little look. He is down to just 1,000 health. Malekith can easily gobble that up in a matter of seconds. Looks like we do have an Overcast Soul Stealer going down as well. Really going for that assassination attempt on Teclis, which is the right way to play this. Phoenix Guard now are at their healing cap as well. And I think if he kills Teclis, balance power may force army losses, which would be really frustrating for the high elf player, as if this was forced to play out, the Phoenix Guard would easily manage to overthrow the remaining units. They'd be able to beat down Malekith, Scourge Runners, and Snatchers Harvesters without too much difficulty. But it looks like Teclis may be forced back. He's just about alive, 400 health. He has to stay alive. It is pivotal to allow the Phoenix Guard the time and the opportunity to take down the rest of the build. But good micro here coming in by Croissant Talbot. Driving his Snatchers Harvesters up and around the Phoenix Guard. There's no need to engage if you don't have to. Hunt down Teclis and defeat him. Now, one thing that could swing the battle, if Teclis can whip back around this flank and perhaps drop a net of Amantok on Malekith and allow the Phoenix Guard to get in there, I think they can certainly swing this engagement. But Teclis is being caught here. The Cold One comes in and a stab to the back. Malekith, the Dark Prince, does slay the Elven Hope. And with that, the Phoenix Guard are going to flee from the battlefield. awesome game, stupidly close there, and some real good stuff by both of those players. Massive shout out to Golden Goose for sending this one in via my Discord, as well as Croissant Talbert. We've had both of these guys on the channel before. I'm pretty sure Golden Goose, off the top of my head, I believe is Golden Eagle. And they are a really good competitor all round. Hope you guys enjoyed that battle. If you did, feel free to give it a big old thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already for more Total War Warhammer content. Feel free to comment as well. I've been a little bit slow at replying to them recently, but don't worry, I do read them all and I do try to reply to as many as I can. Now, as for the builds, very interesting stuff. Really good play with the Rahagras Pride and Nettin, and the Phoenix Guard really putting in a shift there, gaining 2 chevrons, up to 91 kills, and the Loyal Bodyguards till the end. Little Techless died and they thought, you know what, we're going to peace out here. Good Shadow Warrior play as well. Unfortunately, in that mid-game, though, got them caught and kind of driven to the corner where Malekith floated over and managed to seal the deal. And speaking of Malekith, I think he was a real MVP here. I didn't think he could pull it off at the end when there was still the Phoenix Guard left, but with the Gaze of Malice, Soul Stealers, he certainly managed to pull that one out of his back pocket. 102 kills, very impressive stuff. Now, I saw someone recently, I can't remember who it was, but it was a player I respected a lot and really liked their opinion. They felt Dark Elves, I think it might have been Darv Plays off the top of my head, maybe in one of his streams, I'm not sure, but they thought Dark Elves were the weakest faction in the game currently, which I thought was quite a controversial opinion, and I wanted to hear what your guys' thoughts were as well, so please let me know where you think the Dark Elves rank. Are they the worst faction in the game, or do you think they're actually not too shabby in the current meta? And if so, who do you think is the real weakest faction? Anyway guys, until next time, peace, peace. And as always, stay awesome.